My mom canceled my graduation party because my sister was jealous. So I left, and years later, she and my sister watched as I was honored at a state ceremony. Hi, I'm Chloe Sanders, 28 years old, and the story I'm about to tell you is one I have held to my heart for years. Before we begin, tell me where you're listening from. I need to see I'm not alone. And subscribe if you believe in justice. Let's dive in. The invitation sat on my desk for 3 weeks. Cream cardstock with gold lettering. My high school graduation party. Mom had ordered them custom. She'd handed them to me with a smile, like she was actually proud. We're inviting everyone, Chloe. The whole family, friends from church, your classmates. This is a big deal. I should have known better. It was a Tuesday afternoon when everything fell apart. I came home from visiting a friend to find Mom sitting at the kitchen table with that look on her face. The one that says she's about to deliver bad news and expect you to accept it gracefully. Chloe, we need to talk about the party. My stomach dropped. What about it? Your sister's been struggling lately. She feels like nobody notices her anymore because everyone's focused on your graduation. And honestly, she has a point. We think it's better to postpone the party for now. I stared at her, my throat tightening. Janet's upset because people are congratulating me for graduating? Don't be dramatic. We just think a smaller celebration would be more appropriate. Maybe a family dinner instead. Wouldn't that be nicer anyway? The kitchen felt suddenly smaller. I gripped the edge of the counter, my knuckles going white. Janet, my younger sister, who got everything she ever asked for. New laptop? Done. Dance lessons she quit after 3 weeks? No problem. Meanwhile, I hardly ever got any gifts for myself. And now they wanted to cancel my graduation party because she couldn't handle not being the center of attention for one afternoon. You're canceling my party because Janet's jealous? We're postponing it. For when? Mom's expression hardened, her lips pressing into a thin line. Don't be selfish, Chloe. You always make everything about you. The irony of that statement hit me like a punch to the chest. My breath caught, and for a moment I couldn't speak. The gold-lettered invitations on the counter suddenly felt like they were mocking me. I thought about my father. Dad would have never allowed this. He loved both of us equally, never played favorites, never made one of us shrink so the other could feel bigger. When he died from that stroke 2 years ago, something in our family shifted. Mom started favoring Janet more openly, dismissing my feelings, treating me like I was asking for too much whenever I wanted basic recognition. I went to my room that night and locked the door behind me. The invitation sat on my desk, gold letters gleaming under the lamp. I picked it up, my hands shaking, and then I just broke. I collapsed onto my bed, the invitation crumpled in my fist, and tears blurred the framed photo of Dad on my nightstand. His smile looked back at me, frozen in time, and I sobbed into my pillow so no one downstairs could hear. I cried for Dad, who would have insisted on celebrating me, who would have sat Mom down and told her this was wrong, who would have reminded her that you don't cancel one child's milestone because another child feels envious. But Dad was gone, and I was on my own. The next morning, I confronted Mom in the kitchen. Janet was still asleep, the house quiet except for the coffee maker gurgling in the corner. Mom, we need to talk. She looked up from her phone, barely glancing at me. What is it? My heart was pounding so hard, I could feel it in my throat. You've always favored Janet. Always. And canceling my graduation party because she's jealous? That's not fair. Mom's face went cold. Her jaw tightened, and she set her phone down with a deliberate click. If you're so offended over a party, then leave. The words hung in the air between us. The refrigerator hummed. Outside, a car door slammed. I felt something inside me shift, like a door closing. Fine, I heard myself say, my voice steadier than I felt. I will. I packed a bag and went to my Aunt Marina's house. She's Mom's sister, and she'd always been different from the rest of the family. Warmer. More present. When I told her what happened, her expression went from shock to fury. Her hands clenched around her coffee mug. She canceled her graduation party? She said it was just a postponement, but we both know what that means. Aunt Marina grabbed her phone immediately and called Mom. I could hear the conversation from across the room, Aunt Marina's voice sharp with anger, rising with each word, Mom's voice dismissive and cold on the other end. Hilda, how could you do this to her? She's your daughter. Whatever Mom said back made Aunt Marina shake her head in disgust. You're treating her like she doesn't matter. Like she's disposable. Mom's response was apparently just as bad because Aunt Marina ended the call abruptly. You're staying here, she told me. As long as you need. Mom never called. Never checked if I was okay. Never apologized. I settled into Aunt Marina's guest room and focused on what mattered. 2 weeks later, I got my acceptance letter from MIT, Massachusetts Institute of Technology, Biomedical Engineering Program, partial scholarship. I read the letter 3 times before it felt real. My hands were shaking so badly, I had to sit down on the floor. MIT, the school I'd dreamed about since sophomore year, the school I'd studied myself to exhaustion for, the school everyone said was impossible to get into. Mom never reached out to congratulate me, never asked how I was doing, never acknowledged what I'd accomplished. I waited 3 days for a call that never came, so I stopped expecting her to. While in school, I threw myself into my studies. Sleepless nights in the lab, multiple part-time jobs to cover expenses the scholarship didn't, top grades every semester. I was exhausted, but I was building something. A life that belonged to me. There were nights I fell asleep at my desk, jolting awake at 3 a.m. with equations still running through my head. Mornings I'd skip breakfast to make it to my shift at the campus bookstore. Afternoons where I'd drink my 3rd cup of coffee and wonder if I was pushing too hard, if I'd burn out before I even started. But stopping meant proving everyone right. Stopping meant admitting I couldn't do it alone. So I didn't stop. In my 2nd year, I started developing a low-cost stroke detection device. A patch that could identify early warning signs and alert medical personnel. The project became intensely personal. Dad had died from a stroke. If something like this had existed, maybe he'd still be here. I worked on it obsessively. Late nights until my eyes burned from screen glare. Early mornings before class. Every circuit, every algorithm, every prototype brought me closer to something that mattered. Some nights I'd fall asleep at my desk, Dad's photo propped beside my laptop, and wake up with circuit diagrams imprinted on my cheek. But the failures were brutal. 3 months in, my first prototype didn't work. The sensors were too slow, the alert system unreliable. I sat in the lab at 2 a.m., staring at the failed device, and cried. What if I couldn't do this? What if all this work meant nothing? Every failed test felt like letting Dad down all over again. Every setback whispered that I wasn't smart enough, wasn't capable enough, wasn't enough. I'd call Aunt Marina on the worst nights, voice breaking. What if I can't finish this? Then you try again tomorrow, she'd say. That's all anyone can do. 6 months later, I had a working prototype. 9 months after that, I filed for the patent. The day I got the approval letter, I sat alone in my dorm room and finally let myself believe it was real. 2 years later, I graduated. Not just graduated. I broke a 50-year school record by earning a U.S. patent for my stroke detection patch before graduation. The first student to accomplish this in half a century. When they announced it at the department ceremony, I couldn't breathe. 4 years of sleepless nights, failed prototypes, doubt, exhaustion. It all came flooding back. I'd done it. Despite everything, I'd actually done it. My name was in the news. Online articles, local papers, medical journals. People I'd never met were talking about my work, about the lives it could save. And then came Tuesday morning. Mr. Helmsworth, my department head, called me into his office. He was holding an envelope with an official seal. Ms. Sanders, this arrived for you this morning. I took it, confused, my fingers trembling slightly. The return address read Governor's Office. Open it, he said, smiling. Inside was a formal invitation, printed on heavy cardstock, embossed lettering. You are cordially invited to attend the State Innovation Dinner in honor of outstanding achievement in technology and public service. My hand started shaking so badly, I almost dropped it. The words blurred and refocused. Is this real? Very real. The governor wants to honor you for your patent and innovation. This is historic, Chloe. I read it 3 more times, my pulse racing, half convinced I was dreaming. I pressed my thumb against the embossed seal, feeling the texture, making sure it was solid. Later that day, my phone buzzed. An email from the governor's aide, confirming details. Then a phone call, a professional voice walking me through the schedule for the event. I sat in my campus apartment, staring at the wall, my hands still shaking, and then I called Aunt Marina. My voice cracked when she answered. They canceled my graduation party, I said, tears suddenly streaming down my face. But the state wants to celebrate me. The words felt surreal. After years of being dismissed, of working in silence, of wondering if any of it mattered, this. She started crying. Happy tears this time. I could hear her voice breaking on the other end of the line. Your father would be so proud, Chloe. So incredibly proud. That's when I completely broke down. All the pressure, all the fear, all the nights I'd wondered if I'd ever be good enough, it all came pouring out. Within 48 hours, the news was everywhere. Headlines on local stations, shares across social media, articles in major papers. Engineering senior Chloe Sanders to be honored at Governor's State Innovation Dinner. That's when Mom called. Chloe, I just saw the news. Why didn't you tell us? Her voice had that fake warmth to it, the tone she used when she wanted something. I could picture her sitting at the kitchen table, phone pressed to her ear, trying to sound like she cared. Because you never cared. Silence on the other end. A long, heavy silence where I could almost hear her processing what I'd said. That's not fair. We're your family. I took a breath. Here was the moment. There are 2 guest seats reserved for family. I gave one to Aunt Marina. And the other? I could feel my heart pounding, but my voice stayed steady. That one's up to you and Janet to decide. You 2 figure out who gets it and let me know. Another pause. Longer this time. You're making us choose? I'm letting you decide. You have 3 days. I'm your mother, Chloe. I deserve it. I hung up before she could go further. 20 minutes later, my phone rang again. Janet. Mom told me about the dinner. I should get the 2nd seat. Mom won't appreciate it anyway. Plus, she is old school. Her voice was pleading, desperate. For a moment, I almost felt sorry for her. Almost. Janet, I already told Mom. You 2 need to decide together. I'm not getting involved. You're being selfish. Just like always. The old accusation. The one that used to cut deep, make me second-guess myself, wonder if they were right. Not anymore. If wanting respect makes me selfish, then I'm okay with that. I hung up. For 3 days, we had back-and-forth calls and messages. They were still fighting over who was to get the remaining seat. The deadline to confirm my guests was approaching fast, and I needed to make a decision. I thought about who had actually supported me, guided me, and believed in me when it mattered. I sat at my desk with my phone in my hand for 20 minutes, staring at Professor Derek's contact information. Then I called. I called Professor Derek, my mentor, who'd supervised my research for 3 years. I'd be honored, he said when I invited him, his voice warm with genuine pride. When Mom found out, she was furious. She called, yelling about disrespect and family obligation, her voice shrill through the phone speaker. You chose him over your own mother? I held the phone away from my ear for a moment, took a breath, then brought it back. I chose someone who actually helped me. You and Janet couldn't agree. So I gave it to someone who earned it. The line went silent. Then she hung up without another word. This wasn't a fairy tale ending where everyone hugged and cried and promised to do better. This was real life. Messy. Complicated. Unresolved. But it was mine. The night of the dinner arrived. Aunt Marina picked me up from my apartment. I wore a navy blue suit, hair pulled back in a neat ponytail, the silver necklace she'd given me for my 21st birthday, low heels, minimal makeup. My hands wouldn't stop trembling as I fastened the necklace clasp. What if I mess this up? I whispered. Aunt Marina turned to me, her expression fierce. You've already done the hard part, Chloe. Tonight is just showing up and letting them see what you've accomplished. But my stomach was in knots. What if I said the wrong thing? What if I froze on stage? What if, after everything, I still wasn't good enough? When we pulled up to the venue, photographers were already gathered. Camera flashes started popping before I even opened the car door. Security checked our invitations and ushered us through. Someone called my name. A reporter. Then another. Then a medical technology analyst who'd written about my patent. I was greeted by people I'd only seen on television. State officials, medical experts, innovation leaders. And then I saw them. Mom and Janet, standing near the entrance, watching everything unfold. Mom's face was pale, her expression tight. Janet's eyes were wide, taking in the cameras, the attention, the reality of what I'd achieved without them. They approached slowly, uncomfortable, trying to look proud but failing to hide the shock written across their faces. Congratulations, Chloe. This is incredible. Thank you, I replied politely. Janet hugged me awkwardly. You look amazing. Thanks. We stood there for a moment, the weight of everything unsaid hanging between us. The lobby buzzed with conversation around us, but in our small circle, there was only uncomfortable silence. Then a protocol officer approached, clipboard in hand. Miss Sanders, if you're ready, I'll escort you and your guests to your seats. I followed him inside with Aunt Marina and Professor Derek. Behind me, I could feel Mom and Janet watching, realizing they weren't included, understanding what it meant to be left standing outside while I walked through those doors. The hall was stunning. Crystal chandeliers, elegant table settings, everyone dressed formally. I was seated at a table near the front with other honorees. The governor gave a speech about innovation, public service, and the importance of supporting young minds who create solutions for real problems. Then he called my name. I walked to the stage, my legs shaking, my heart pounding so hard I thought everyone could hear it. He handed me a framed certificate and a medal, and the audience stood and applauded. The sound washed over me like a wave, overwhelming and beautiful. Then it was my turn to speak. I'd prepared remarks, typed them out, practiced them in the mirror. But when I looked out at the crowd, when I saw all those faces looking up at me expectantly, my mind went blank. The words I'd memorized vanished. For a terrifying moment, I couldn't remember what I was supposed to say. Then I saw Dad's face in my memory, remembered his laugh, his encouragement, the way he believed in me even when I didn't believe in myself. I could only think of one thing. 10 years ago, my father died from a stroke. My voice caught, and I had to pause, my hands gripping the podium. The silence in the room was deafening. It was sudden, devastating, and I thought, there has to be a way to catch this earlier, to give people more time. My voice broke. I took a breath, steadied myself. So, I created a device that could do exactly that. This award isn't just for me. It's for him, and for everyone who's lost someone they love, because we didn't have the tools to save them. The audience gave me a standing ovation. I looked out at the crowd, my vision blurring with tears, and saw Aunt Marina crying, dabbing her eyes with a tissue. Professor Derek smiling proudly, his hands raised in applause. And in the viewing area outside the main hall, through the glass partition, I saw Mom and Janet. Watching, witnessing the moment they could have been part of, had they chosen differently. Mom's hand was pressed against the glass. Janet's face was unreadable. After the dinner, they found me in the lobby. I was talking with one of the governor's aides when I felt someone touch my arm. Chloe, we need to talk, Mom said, her voice smaller than I'd ever heard it. Okay. Janet spoke first, her voice barely above a whisper. We're sorry. For everything. The party, how we treated you not being there. Mom nodded, her eyes red-rimmed. I was wrong. I let my feelings affect how I treated you. I looked at both of them, really looked at them. Saw the regret etched in Mom's face, the guilt in Janet's posture. I accept your apology. But things can't go back. I need boundaries. I need respect. And my accomplishments aren't a threat. We understand, Mom said quietly, her voice cracking. Do you? I held her gaze, steady and unwavering. We're going to try, Janet said. That's all we can promise. I nodded. Then we'll start from there. If you're watching this and you've ever felt invisible in your own family, ever had your achievements minimized or your celebrations canceled, I want you to know something. Your worth isn't determined by who celebrates you. It's determined by what you build, who you become, and how you rise despite the people who fail to see you. They canceled my graduation party, but the state threw me one instead. And that taught me the most important lesson of all. When the people who should support you won't, the world will step in. Keep going. Keep building. Keep achieving. You owe it to yourself to shine, even if the people closest to you can't handle the light. Thank you for listening to my story.